Welcome to the STEM Pathways podcast, where we delve into the fascinating world of science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm your host, Rohan Sharma, a passionate explorer of all things STEM. Each episode, we bring you captivating stories, cutting edge research, and inspiring interviews with experts and enthusiasts who are pushing the boundaries of innovation. Whether you're a student, a professional, or just curious about how the world works, join us as we unlock the mysteries of the universe and explore the endless possibilities of STEM. Let's get started. Today, I'll be interviewing Joshua Griffin, who holds a master's in electrical engineering and an MBA from Stanford. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining me on the podcast. So to start off, I wanted to ask what made you choose your major of electrical engineering for your bachelor's?
Oh, wow. So this was going back to high school, right? School is awesome, right? Let me just put that out there, right? You're gonna learn a bunch of just random stuff, and that's your job, right? So I liked English. I liked science. I thought I was gonna study philosophy, and then there was one class where we looked at the different majors, and then we looked at the average earning, right? And I knew school wasn't free. Um, and turns out philosophy didn't have a high, like, average return. Um, I was interested in physics. I still, big fan of Neil deGrasse Tyson and some of the astrophysics guys. I looked at physics; it was better. And then I was like, man, what's this engineering thing, right? And so, that ranked really well. And now you have computer science and some other things on there too. But yeah, it was basically taking a look at, what is my ROI going to be? And, engineering had a good one.
Yeah. So what was your experience while getting your degree?
Okay, so, as we were chatting before we got rolling, I hinted that there's some stuff that's not on LinkedIn, right? Um, Part of that is like my pathway into engineering. I did my undergrad at University of Washington, and before I was at University of Washington, I was at a community college, right? Um, so, like my experience getting the degree was, I was working full time at the time. Um, so, I spent like 4 or 5 years getting my 2 year degree, right? And granted, I was playing basketball, I was doing some other things, right? Um, and so it was different than most people. Um, Now, like my vision was always something like go away to school, you get to have fun, you get a party and like learn at the same time and do all this other stuff. And I didn't really have that. Right? I was working and then I'd just go to class and then I'd go home and study, right? Um, so in graduate school, there was more of that in the business school portion. That there was more of that, like live on campus, immersive experience. Um, so I guess kind of summarizing, um, undergraduate, I wish that I had been able to live on campus. It's like a special thing, um, but it worked out. You just got to grind a little bit harder and have a little bit less fun. But kind of graduate school, I got a taste of that, and I thought it was great.
Yeah. So what kind of jobs were you holding while doing that? And how did that, like, how much harder do you think that made it, like, actually doing classes and keeping up with everything?
um, so I first was washing dishes. All right. This was like a college job, so I lived at home in the very beginning, and it was like I was washing dishes for a few hours a night, and there's a bunch of other college kids there too, and it was actually fun. I got free food and all that stuff, and that was one of my favorite jobs until I had to do it full time, right? So then moved out of the house and had to pay rent and feed myself and do all that stuff. And It sucked, man. It was like 8 hours, a completely different crowd there in the morning. Not college kids there, and I had a lot less fun working in the morning. Um, and then I got a job actually at Boeing, right? So I applied to work on the assembly line, like an entry level mechanic, and the benefit of that was so I had to like I guess drop out of school or take a break from community college for a little bit when I was doing the dishwashing thing, and then at Boeing they pay for school, right? So you're washing dishes, you're not making a lot of money. Um, School's expensive, like we said. Even community college can get add up. So working at Boeing, they covered the cost of school, which was a great benefit. But they also, at the time at least, were requiring a bunch of overtime. So don't tell anyone this, but like uh, I kind of sneak away and try and work on a couple of problems in your problem set, while you're on break or taking a little bit longer break and doing that sort of stuff. So it was hard. I'd say it was twice as hard, maybe more, right? Because I'm spending 8 to 10 hours out of my day when I should be studying, hanging out, getting swollen at the gym or whatever else, working, and then I got to go take classes. So obviously my course load was lower, hence it took a lot longer to get done. Um, and just kind of the hours in your day just go a lot quick.
Yeah. So, what was the process when you're applying to your master's programs?
The process. It's funny. I was fortunate enough where I found a program that provided some legitimate insight for me and process around the application. Um, yeah, and I'm laughing because like coming out of undergrad, I was like, I think it makes sense to do a graduate degree, and I've been someone that's pursued like optionality, quite intensely. So I was like, let me look at my career trajectory at Boeing and what value can a degree add to that. And so I ended up applying to um, some PhD programs in electrical engineering. Um, and I'm looking back now and like I had no clue what I was doing, right? The PhD, it's very specific thing, and you need to be an expert in whatever your sub discipline is, and really be um, you know renowned for like your knowledge in that space, and you're going to be like generating new knowledge, right? You're publishing articles and that sort of thing. Anyway, I was just like, man, technology is cool. my, my application. So there's a really cool organization called MLT, Management Leadership for Tomorrow, and I was lucky enough to get linked up with them, and they have a pipeline where they're like, okay, do your research, right? Talk to some people, at different business schools, and the program is related to business school admissions, right? So, they have this program set up, and they'll walk you through the steps, right? Okay, you're talking to people, you're doing your research, um, you're practicing interviews and writing essays that make sense with a career trajectory or career statement that aligns with your past experience, right? So basically, it's something like um, figure out what you want to do, um, take the appropriate tests after studying for them. Typically, GMAT's for business, GRE covers a ton of different stuff. Um, and then like, prep for, your applications, so get letters of recommendation, that sort of thing. And then get ready for interviews.
Yeah. And how many schools were you applying to back then?
I applied to applied to 7 business schools.
Hmm.
So, and I mean, you, you can reuse some things, and there are some universities that are part of, um, they kind of use a shared application, so you can kind of look for those opportunities too if you're trying to maximize like that.
Yeah. So while you're at Stanford, my first question is what makes Stanford's MBA program stand out from all these other ones as it's one of the most highly ranked ones in the world?
Um, um, I could give you a million answers. I'm not hesitating because there isn't something there. Like, universities have gotten so selective, it's crazy, right? So I think if you have the chance to go to Stanford, dude, don't hesitate. It was an amazing experience. Um, you name it, right? So all the obvious stuff is there, right? It's in a beautiful setting. The weather's great. The faculty is the best in the world. The students are the best in the world. Um, you know, all of that. Now, what I think is actually different is, and you could say that about a lot of places, at least a handful. But what I think is unique is that there is a culture like of something else, right? So I don't know. You go to um, some East Coast college, let's say, and yeah, everyone's like super driven, and they work really hard, they're super smart, and all that stuff. Um, but it's like, what is their ambition? Is it to you know like get a good degree from a good school so that they can get a good job, right? So that they can buy a good house, or are they actually trying to build something like beyond themselves? And at Stanford, remember I applied to a bunch of different schools. I went to all of them, like to visit and interview and talk. And it you know stood above as far as like the culture of um, commitment to making the world a better place goes. And this is something we were kind of chatting about for a second or two before we got started here, which I think was really awesome that around the stuff that you're doing.
Mhm. Yeah. So, and then my other similar question was what makes our electrical engineering so good?
Oh man, because it's hard, bro. Let me give you contrast the experiences, right? So, I have 2 master's degrees, right? So, um, I'm not gonna say business school is a piece of cake, but at least I can like understand the equations or whatever. Like, dude, the engineering, it's like, are you guys just making stuff up? The symbols are like, I've never even seen these before. So, um, it is, they go deep, right? And they go fast, and they're not gonna wait for you. That's you know, I imagine, I only experienced those 2 schools, but like, um, the engineering, the resources that they have, the professors that they have, right? Like, you're not gonna find anyone that has, you're not gonna find a place with that same, level. Um, and then, but the business school, um, there's a more of a people focus to it. And let me just say, like, I'm not sure if everyone in the engineering school lives on campus. I do know for the business school, right? Like, you're on campus, you're literally next to your classes, you're surrounded by your classmates. Like, the experience is like very integrated, like socially and academically. Um, I knew and made friends with significantly less people in the Eng school, but like, um, that's not to say like, I don't know, people aren't friendly there, or if you um, want to make that your experience, you can't. That was just kind of where I was coming from because I actually started. So I did 3 years. I started fully at the business school, spent my second year like doing classes half and half, and then my third year I was more on the engineering side. Um, but yeah, hopefully that answers what you were saying.
Yeah. So, the Stanford, they only offer the full-time MBA, right?
And there's a program that's like analogous to like an executive uh, MBA, but it is full time for a year. When I was there, it was MSX. It used to be called the Sloan program, and then they do some. I think they do some executive like training certificates or something like that. And so, um, might be for different demographic, but there are some other programs, but um, I'm not aware of any part time.
Yeah. So, are the people doing the MBA mostly just coming like right out of finishing their bachelors or doing another master's like you did? Or have they already gotten to the work experience?
Yeah, so the MBA is like a little different, right? I don't know, you do med school and like typically you come out, not everyone does. Same with law school. Most of the graduate programs. The MBA, Stanford, and you know, like other top tier schools, they'll I don't want to say require, but highly encourage like some real world work experience. Um, so I think the person that had the least experience probably had like 2 years of work experience or something. On average, it's around 5 years, post your undergrad. So, like I said, it's a little bit different, but you can get, like, if you're just killing, right, killing undergrad, you can get like a deferred admission,
Mhm.
right? So you can apply and be like, and they'll be like, dude, you're a rock star. Go like live in the real world for like a little bit, and then come to us when you're ready, and we'll take you to the next stage.
Yeah. So, can you talk a little bit about the people you're surrounded with there and
Mm.
what impressive work some of them were doing?
Um, let's see. It really it runs the gamut. Cool thing about the GSB, Graduate School of Business, is they do a good job of building like a class that's really diverse, right? I told you my background, manufacturing. Then I did study. I ultimately got a bachelor in electrical engineering, and I was at Boeing, so um, I kind of come in from that angle. A lot of people from finance or banking, or working in NGOs or teaching, right? It really like runs the gamut. Some impressive stuff that people are doing. Something I see and uh, talk to people about all the time is folks starting businesses. Right. So um, I wish I don't know. I'll let you guys research this, but like coming out of business school, there's probably like five major industries that people go into. Something like consulting, finance, and like tech, and so I don't know, some other stuff, right? Um, Startups is one of those. So you definitely have people coming out and um, accelerating their careers, um, and they're doing great things in within like their corporate structure in all of those industries. Um, Something that I love is the startup mentality, and like culture in Silicon Valley and at Stanford, in particular. Right. So, if you're thinking about the impact that you can have, like starting your own business, like it's really limitless. Right? What did Elon Musk do? Right? Like, he started those businesses from scratch, and so I do have classmates that are doing similar things, in energy, uh, clean energy, multiple startups that are really doing well. Um, what else? There's fintech guy that popped up on Forbes, and I got to keep him in check. I'm like, hey man, you still the same dude. You still the same dude from GSP. So, um, but he's doing really well, and there are multiple other classmates that are doing like similarly, and others that are like on that trajectory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get on that.
Yeah. So coming out of your master's, what was your first job?
What was my first job? So coming out, let me give folks a little bit of maybe a lesson. So this isn't no one's gonna see this, right? Um, so I saw business school as like an opportunity to reset in a way, and it can be, right? Like I mentioned, people go into all these different fields. However, I can't go and say, all right, I come in having a background in like manufacturing and engineering, and then now I'm gonna be like a financial analyst or an investment banker, like coming out of business school, unless I bust my ass and make the right connections and prove that like I did my homework and like I understand the ins and outs of whatever this business and role is, and then get an internship and then crush it, and then I might be able to line something up. Um, so I was kind of looking at multiple different things in school without like a strong direction, right? Um, and so I didn't uh, do like internships. Right? I didn't get good internships, and then coming out, I uh, I took like basically like 6 months off, right? Um, it's not like I was doing nothing, but I went to Nigeria and I was helping a company out there for 3+ months, and then I had knee surgery because I like to get injured when I play sports, and then next thing I know, I'm like 6 months out, and then I'm like, hey guys, like I'm ready to get hired, and they're like, oh, there's a track. It's like an MBA track, okay? So most of the big companies have something like this. Amazon in particular is like, all right, this person they just got their MBA. All right, we got some roles that are for fresh MBA graduates, right? Um, However, after that 6 months, like I'm no longer like a new MBA grad. And so, for me, I didn't really have any additional experience in that 6 months. So that put me in a pool of applicants that had up to 5 years of experience versus my basically zero. And I was applying in the product management space. Yeah. So I ended up going back to Boeing for um, like a few months, right? And then while I was there, then I found a product management role at a smaller company, right? It's kind of interesting. We can talk about that business later, but they're a small company trying to integrate technology into their core business and build software solutions off of it. Did that for about a year, and then like COVID happened, and then they laid off 1/3 of the company, and I was among that group.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about what you're doing over in Africa?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. So there's a company there. So this was, looking back, I'm glad I did it because there is a program at Stanford called Stanford Seed, and what they do is they essentially help incubate. Um, Maybe that's strong, but like they have a business development program for businesses in developing parts of the world. And these are like small to medium-sized businesses. And they have a curriculum that these business owners come and their executive teams can come and take on site. They have business coaches that are professionals in industry that can provide them some ongoing support, and then they send out interns, right? And so I was one of the interns that they sent out, and the business that I went to was doing two things. They were like creating a like clean cooking fuel. So it's like an ethanol based fuel that folks can use in their home to replace um, dirtier fuels that actually it can be super unhealthy. Just imagine like you're trying to cook in your house with like wood or whatever, and you're like getting smoked out while you're right like making whatever you're making. Super unhealthy, especially like we got to eat every day, right? So they were they had a much cleaner alternative that wasn't super expensive, and then they're also trying to um, like expand solar panel adoption. Um, like in developing countries, the electrical grid just tends not to be good, right? It's if you think about the economics of like electricity or any kind of infrastructure, right? Like there's some like you want to serve like your high value users, and then like um, if you don't meet some value threshold, then it's like hard to get service out there. Even in America, we had this problem, in the early 1900s, right? Like rural areas weren't served by electricity, right? So, in developing countries, they're kind of, many are in that same spot, and so the electricity either you don't have it or it's not reliable, and so a ton of people have like generators. I was in Lagos and I was like, man, everywhere I go, it smells like gas. Right. It's like, oh, okay. People got gas to run their generators for when the power goes out. And that's if you got, you're relatively well off there. Anyway, so that my point is that with the solar panel adoption, that can help supplement or replace generators. Obviously you have to have battery, but also in rural areas, then you can use like solar panels um, there as well. And,
Yeah.
and I talked about what the company did, but just to kind of specifically answer your question, I was there like analyzing like what the right next investment was for the company, like looking at like different fuel sources and like expansion opportunities.
Yeah. So aside from working, what was it like suddenly being in Africa for a little bit?
It's different. So I born and raised in Seattle. I actually, one of the cool things about business school is everyone likes to travel. Not that I had any money then, but I'm paying for all the traveling now. Um, but so I did get to go around and see, a lot of different places. And Africa, huge continent, of course. So each place is different. Lagos is like it's like a very dense sprawl, right? It kind of is like LA in the sprawl element of it, but the density is just much higher. And there is Nigeria is a resource rich country, and like there's challenges, um like I'm not sure if you'd say like spreading the wealth, right? But like finding opportunities for the masses to like buy into and get lifted up by the prosperity that others enjoy. Right. So if you great, you strike oil and like it's fantastic. And then the government comes in and is like, all right, we got to regulate this thing. And then next thing you know, a ton of money is passing through like a few hands. And so that's one of the challenges that they have where, for example, um, very well off individuals, right, rolling around, and everyone loves G wagons out there. Okay, and I was like, man, what's up with this G wagon? And then I was driving around in my Ubers, whatever Toyota Corolla, and going over these bumps and stuff. I was like, oh, okay, I see a G wagon fly past. Oh, okay, like, that makes sense. So it's different in a lot of ways, but like I don't know, people speak English, like um, we're all the same at the end of the day.
Yeah. So what'd you do after working that job you're talking about before this?
Right on. So after I went to that small company and was PMing there, I went to Microsoft. So I got laid off, and then I was out. Actually, I took this cool coding class that I recommend to everyone. Um, if they're still doing it, it was called like, man, it was, and it might have been for COVID, right? But they had this class. It was like Code for All. Damn it, I think it was like 106A or 106B, probably A, and it was Python, and like they had like 1,000 people in there, and then like but it was an actual class. Like you would have lecture, and then you go into breakout groups, and you do your work, you had homework, all that stuff. So I took that class. It's for fun, and then um, after I finished the class, this was when I was like out of work for a couple of months, and then after I finished the class, then I was able to get signed on at Microsoft. Um, Microsoft, just to give you a sense of the work. So I found out at the end I was a technical program manager, um, which I was kind of on the product track, but it's good from a business perspective to understand the space, like the broader space. But I helped like product teams digest and like make sense of customer data and like feedback information, right? So they're looking, and you go in the whatever tool it is. I was on the business application side, like Power Apps and stuff like that, but still same exists on the customer side. So you go into Microsoft Excel and you're like, ah man, this thing sucks or whatever, and then you send off some feedback. It's like, how do you take that information, see what is actually going on, like understand the user pain points, and turn that into some like product recommendation that you can prioritize and then fit into your roadmap.
Yeah. And then after working at Microsoft, you were at Google for a bit.
Correct.
And what was your role there?
So then I moved back into product, which it's I'll let you ask follow-up questions, but basically, as a product manager, you're really trying to think about for your target audience, for your customers, like what is the best thing that I can do and build for them, right? Like where does life really suck for them, and how can I make that better, right? And so I worked in the ads planning and also the like YouTube TV, like ad format space. So ads planning, we're building tools for like advertisers and media companies to like maximize their ad campaigns. And then the ad format side is like um, basically. Sorry, I laugh because when I tell people this, then they get a little bit upset at me, which I understand. But I'm bringing in new advertising formats onto surfaces, right? And I was working on YouTube TV, so like when you're on YouTube TV watching it and you're like, oh man, I hate that there's this kind of ad now and like it didn't used to be there. It's like sorry, but gotta pay the bill. So um, that's what I was doing there.
So after Google, you're now at Cardinal Insights, which you started.
Correct, right? Yeah, and so like one, let me give you like the premise here, right? There's a dude. I'll make a plug for this other guy if I can remember his name, Scott Galloway. Right. So he's a NYU business like econ professor or something like that. Has a cool book. I didn't read it, but I heard some of the stuff that he was talking about, which is basically like um, the tides are shifting, right? My parents' generation, like baby boomers, you know, like you could just walk off, come out of high school and walk into an assembly line or walk into a factory and get a great job. Right. That's what my dad did. Right. And get that awesome suburban house, get a two-car garage, and fill it with two cars, and work for 30 or 40 years and raise a family. It's changing, man. Like there's a lot of international competition now, and like the premium on education, but like the right education, like technology related education, generally speaking, the finance like is important too, because as like a lubricant for the economy. Um, it pays disproportionately, and then like the actual work that's on the ground has been like growing slowly. Like it's not keeping up. In other words, right? So it's harder to like be upper middle class um, today than I would say like yesterday. Okay, so what does someone do? Well, one of the opportunities that's coming around is um, that same generation, baby boomers, right? They've built some like really good businesses, right? Um, However, there's been a lot of shift, like technology shift and other things where you know maybe they don't keep up as well. So at Cardinal Insight, we are enabling businesses to like adapt to the times, if you will, right? So it's a lot of like digital marketing, right? Thinking about like how strategy has changed and how your business can actually take advantage of some of the new improvements in like logistics and the information infrastructure. Um, so I want to wrap that bow on Scott Galloway, right? So that he had like two plugs, right? And you may be going here, but I'll beat you to the punch. Um, he was saying he's like, hey, uh, if I were like graduating right now, the way that I would ensure that I have like a strong financial footing for the rest of my life is to find an industry that has 90% employment and that I think I can be in the top 10% in, right? So in other words, find something that you think you can be good at that like employs people, right? And obviously, it should pay like a decent salary. He said like, that's one surefire way. And then something else that's overlooked is like, um, I'm talking about small businesses. Right? A lot of these small businesses are like profitable, but they're not as glamorous as some people would like. Right? It's not Google or whatever, Facebook or something like that. Um, so he's saying that he expects there to be an opportunity where folks can step in and own those types of businesses in the future because the baby boomers are retiring and build not from the ground up but build from a starting place that is already good.
Yeah. Can you talk a little more specifically about the kinds of businesses that you help out?
Yeah, I'm for sure. So we um, we we specialize in like digital marketing, like I mentioned. We do strategy and supply chain, um, and we offer some other services as well, but those are like key areas. Um, like the main types of businesses are like retailers, and we do a lot of service businesses, right? So think about like folks running HVAC companies or construction type companies. Um, so we support them as well. But like the main thing for us is like, are you? We target smaller businesses, and then like, do you have a need that fits our skill set?
Yeah. And right now, how many like businesses are you working with, and how many people are at your company?
Right on. So we have in total, it's less than 10 people right now. Um, and the businesses that we're working with, we have like half a dozen or so companies that we're working with at any given moment. Um, yeah, and obviously I can't disclose names, but like the cool thing is you get to you actually get to see like the results, right? So if you go and you come out, and I'm not gonna knock anything, right? I've kind of worked big and small, but if you come out and you go to like a big, you know, big three consulting firm, you'll be working and you'll be doing stuff that will be impactful. Um, but oftentimes it gets thrown into the ether. We get to work side by side with our clients, and you know, I can go on the factory floor or go through the shop and see like what issues they're having, and when we get to not just like come up with but put in place, implement a solution for them, like the the impacts on their business can be immediate, right? Like you can come in and see, okay, like it is busier here than it was before, like those types of things.
Yeah. And about how long do you usually spend with each business working with them?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, typically it's like 6 to 8 weeks, but it's the thing that is important to us is actually like building a relationship, right? So it's not like we just kind of cut them off. Um, it's like, all right, the engagement period's over, right? We're constantly talking to them, and if things come up, then we're happy to continue to provide guidance there. And then when the next project comes along, then we already have the conversation started.
Yeah. So for my last question, I wanted to ask if you have one piece of advice for someone who's still in high school or early in college wanting to follow a similar career path as you.
Uh, don't do it the way I did it. um, no, so one thing that I would say, I don't know if I could say I regret it, right? But I was super like engaged, involved with sports. Like basketball was my sport, right? If I stood up in front of you now, you'd be like, "Why did you choose that? You're only 6 feet tall." Like, right? um, so I think it was good, right? I learned some stuff about discipline and teamwork and all that stuff. But it like didn't have what I'll call like a dual threat, right? So like basketball didn't work out. Like I don't. No one cares that I have like a nasty crossover and I can do a spin move that'll make your head spin. Right. At least from a business perspective. So in basketball, you can go and be the best of the best, but just shy of the best of the best of the best. And like there's essentially like no payoff, right? You can go play basketball overseas and make $50,000 a year, and like you're actually like really damn good, right? Um, that like is kind of it doesn't have the dual threat. I'm just gonna say it's stupid. Like it's not stupid to do like necessarily. I'm not putting anybody down, right? But it just doesn't have the optionality that being that good at something should have. If you're the best, the best, the best in you know the law profession, right? Dude, you're a billionaire, right? So, and if you're like, if you're like so, then you're a millionaire. And if you're like, and if you really are terrible, then like you're like making six figures, right? So, I would prioritize investing like energy in things that have that long term payoff as well as things that you enjoy. Um, I think there's two like main components, right, that can drive you. You can be just like that hard worker, which kind of has been what I've relied on, or you can be like super passionate about whatever you're doing. And like either one can like take you far. I think it's best to like develop your passion muscle, which school can really be awesome for, because then you might enjoy, in addition to like putting in a ton of time into something, you might actually enjoy it. So I view it less as like finding what you're passionate about, as like building your ability to be passionate about more things, and then you can choose what makes the most sense, right? If you're like, I'm passionate about art history and I'm passionate about computer science, right? Where you're like, okay, well maybe I'll study computer science and get that degree and make that a profession. And then, after, I'm making whatever tons of money at work, then I can come home and like paint or whatever it is. Right?
Yeah. All right then. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure.